Welcome to Finding the Modern Man podcast. Join me, Peter Kiricosta, your health and performance expert and self-leadership coach, as myself and my guests discuss and uncover what it means to be a man in today's society, helping you optimize physical, mental, and emotional health in order to create a life with purpose and passion in the changing world that we live in. Hello, and welcome to Finding the Modern Man podcast. I'm your host, Peter Kiricosta, health and performance expert and self-leadership coach. So what is Finding the Modern Man? In this podcast, we'll be discussing and uncovering what it means to be a man in the changing landscape of today's society and finding a greater balance in the life and times that we live in, covering a broad range of topics that support creating a better life for ourselves and, more importantly, for future generations. So, who is this podcast for? Well, as the name indicates, it is predominantly for men, though many demographics can benefit from the content that we cover, but it is coming more so from a man's perspective. And what type of men is this podcast for? Perhaps your life is not functioning the way you want. You want to make a change, but you're unsure of how. Perhaps over the years, you feel you've lost your way, your vitality, a connection to your true self, the essence of who you really are. And perhaps over time, you've not had the opportunities to develop these parts of yourself as well. Then this podcast could have some great insights that can help you over time. I believe that all great change needs to come from within the individual, an internal decision, an internal movement, which then permeates out into other areas of our life and the people around us. This is where self-leadership comes in, being accountable and responsible for your actions and the controllable elements of your life, leading and making decisions from the true self, as opposed to the conditioned, reactive part of us that has developed over the years. Becoming more aware over time, not just of ourselves, but of others. And starting to peel back the layers of the emotional onion that we've developed over the years. We'll be looking at finding purpose and passion and how to integrate that into your life for a more fruitful being day to day. So by now you might be also asking, yeah, but Pete, how? How are we going to do this? Well, through my various studies over the years and clinical practice, I've developed a core framework and principles. These are the 8 pillars of self-mastery. These are the 8 key areas of life that I feel are so important to work on in order to create long-lasting change and to become the type of man that has the life you want, to become the type of men the society needs us to be. All starts with us, what we do internally. And this is where the 8 pillars come in. The following pillars are not in any order of importance. They are all important. But let's start with constitution. This is a mix of our genetics, deck of cards that we've been given to play in this life, learning how it is more individual than we realize. We are all individual people with a unique genetic makeup. Epigenetics also comes into this, the environment around us and how that affects our health. Mindset is the second pillar. Third is food. Fourth is movement. Fifth is physical therapy. Sixth, stress and anxiety. Seventh, communication. And eighth, relationships. So what is the purpose of these pillars? With so many fragments of information that we get bombarded with through various sources of media, it can be hard to figure out what works for you and how to put things together to make it work long term. So the 8 pillars provide a framework or a GPS of sorts. So when you're unsure of what to focus on or what direction to go in, we can refer back to the 8 pillars, assess what areas are working for us, what aren't, what little tweaks we can make along the way, and move forward. You'll also recognize in future episodes, I'll be referring back to the pillars, the interplay between them, and how they influence each other and how that plays out in our life. Because one thing I've noticed over the years, one thing I've learned is that in life or in health, dysfunctions are rarely singular cause and rarely have a singular flow on effect. So we'll be referring back to the framework, which allows us to make the small steps in one area, which can then have greater flow on effects in others. Kind of like compound interest in investments. You add a little bit in, you make a little bit of effort, invest a bit of energy into one area, then the other, and another. It feeds out. And then over time, that energy compounds, that effort grows upon itself, leading to greater results down the track. Well, that's the end of the introduction episode of Finding the Modern Man. In the next episode, I'll go into a more detailed explanation of each pillar, and you'll see what kind of topics that we'll be covering, the angle that we're coming from in Finding the Modern Man, and how that applies to your life. Then we'll be following on from there at further episodes, pulling them apart and going a lot deeper into each aspect and each part. So thank you for listening. And if you found this to be useful, please pass it on to someone else. Share it, like. Let's get this going. Let's get the movement of men working together, working on ourselves, coming together to create a better life and a better society for us all. Thank you. Just a friendly reminder that what we discussed today does not constitute personalized advice. If you're planning on making significant changes to your life, creating a pathway suited to your specific needs and goals is recommended. Also, if you have any questions or topics you would like me to cover on future episodes, please get in touch via social media or through the website. And thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.